Good morning. This is Joshua Taylor. Come to you on the second part on concerning the scattering of the holy people. And I don't know exactly when this is going to happen. Whether this is like when the war breaks out in Israel, and the man of sin steps up on the scene, to bring in this the rebuilding of the second temple, where Israel or Jerusalem would be divided into two capitals, and so we know that this definitely is going to cause a shaking in the church world. I don't believe for a minute that the church is going anywhere between now and that time, that the church will see the Psalms 83 war break out in the Middle East, and that they will be here to see this present Pope appoint this political leader, where he's going to tell them after when he sits in the temple, it's not going to be the Pope that's going to sit in the temple. It's going to be this one that he appoints, and the Pope's going to say to the people around the world, "This is your new Messiah." And when this happens, I believe that the church world is still going to be here. That they're not going anywhere. And as far as when the church is going to be taken out, uh, I don't know whether that's going to be at the midpoint. But one thing is certain, that the believers in Yeshua, that they are going to be here to see the Psalms 83 war breakout, the scattering of the holy people, and the ushering in of the man-child in 1260 days, and the coming in of this global citizenship, where your smartphone, where the chip SIM card in your smartphone is going to be replaced by another chip that's going to replace all your plastic. And you can see that's happening now. You go to Tim Hortons, you take your phone, you go like this, and you pay for your coffee. And this is going to increase, where it's going to become your identity, your passport, your driver's license, and everything. Then when the abomination of desolation is decreed at the midpoint of Jacob's trouble, then he's going to say you're going to have to go from there, and you're going to be chipped in the right hand and forehead. And when the man of sin does take a seat in the third temple, that much of the world was going to go this way. And for the church, if you're hearing this, if you're a new believer, or if you've been a believer for a lot of years, that now this is a warning to you. If you go that way and you accept this world citizenship, God's going to hand you over to destruction, because you fail to believe the truth of God's word. You're going to be handed over to the strong delusion. And it's not just a man's going to rise up in the same way that Hitler had this charisma that caused people to follow him. This man that's going to rise up, this man of sin that's going to rise up and take a seat in the temple, he's going to have a charisma that's going to be 10 times more than what Hitler ever had. People are going to follow him. People are just going to be drawn to this guy. And I know this because of what happened to David Terrell, God's prophet to the world, years ago, shortly after the Lord came to him in 1967, gave him the revelation of Jesus Christ. He was in his trailer and he was praying, and he felt this disturbance in the spirit realm. And he walked outside, and to his right, he saw this Syrian with a orange turban on his head. And this guy was just glowing with the power of God. And he said that he was Jesus Christ. And, David Terrell, he's a man of prayer and fasting. He's been doing this for the last 50 years. He knows the Lord. He's seen Jesus face to face, had many visitations from heaven. And yet he has been taken over by this force. It was taken over his will. Like this this guy was getting into his mind and overcoming his will from the inside. Anyway, he started walking toward this guy. He wanted to worship this guy, this dude with the orange turban on his head. And the Lord spoke to him and said, "Plead my blood." And when he did this, this face of this angelic presence changed and became hideous. And this false Messiah, I believe this is one that's going to sit in the temple. He's going to be all angelic and all that. But when he does show himself, people are going to realize that he fell into a snare, that they're going to be caught, and he's going to reveal his true identity. But he's going to have a power to persuade people, and people are going to fall for him. It's going to be a spiritual takeover, a false anointing that's going to grip the hearts of those who fall for him. And just like I'm saying, like David Terrell, he's taught for 50 years that the church is not going anywhere. And this goes line in line with Sadu Sundar Selveraj, a prophet from India. He saw that the church is going to be here to go through the mark of the beast, and Terry Bennett, Neville Johnson, and which are friends of Selveraj's. They're in agreement, and these are people that are walking in heavenly places. They're walking in a spirit realm that the Lord has brought them in. Sadu, he's been taken into heaven on a number of occasions and brought before the council of prophets, shown things that, before things happen on the earth, that decisions are first made in the heavenlies, then they're carried out here on the earth. But there's been many people that have saw that the church is going to go through tribulation. So when the church still finds herself still here, when man-child is birthed and we come into these 1260 days, into this time of persecution where the temple is rebuilt and the man of sin rises up to power, they're going to be in a shock. So many church believers, because they have not been taught the truth, that they're going to go through persecution, are going to compromise, and they're going to follow this false path when he comes up. So many are going to follow this false path. There's only going to be a remnant that's going to follow the Lord. That's going to follow Jesus Christ. Only a remnant. It's not going to be the whole church world. It's going to be a separation. And you better seek the Lord to find out exactly which camp that you're going to be in. Because there is a delusion that's going to come, that's going to take over the minds of the people. And unless we rise up and come into a steadfast faith, that we're not going to be ready to resist what's coming. And in the same point, David Terrell, God's prophet to the world, he saw, back in the 60s, what's called blessed areas, places of refuge, mother communities that take up very large portions of land in America. You saw people that were preserved and protected during the time of the mark of the beast. And yet these churches across America, they're teaching a soft gospel. They're not ready for persecution. And I'm not ready for persecution. I know that I need to press in to rise up and come into the place that God has called me to do. 40 years ago, I know that the Lord had a call on my life. But many of us has been reserved for this end time to rise up at the Father's appointed time, which is now, to become part of this prophetic company that God's bringing forth. That's going to go forth with the everlasting gospel. It's not that the Jewish people are going to go forth with the everlasting gospel. It's going to be the remnant, the man-child of Revelations 12:5. This prophetic company that's going to be anointed with the spirit of Elijah and the spirit of Moses. They're going to stand up against all these high places they're going to be set up in Israel. Israel's going to go back and worship the gods that they did in Israel in the ancient times. You're going to see the hills around Jerusalem set up with all kinds of abominations of high worship, false worship. And this is going to take place all around the world. Look at what's taking place in America. People, you need to wake up. You need to search out what the Lord has shown these people that I have mentioned. Because they're fathers in the faith. They've been around. They hear God's voice. And if you're in a church that's not teaching, being prepared for the times you're coming in, you better get out. You better find yourself a body of believers who preach the truth. Better get out of these churches that are going to compromise. And, when the times get hard, that 80% of the pastors across America, they've already mandated or made an agreement with FEMA that they're going to hand their congregations over to the FEMA camps, saying, yeah, you're going to be taken care of when food gets scarce and trouble comes upon the land. The majority of the churches are going to compromise, but there will be a new group of people that will rise up who will know their God, and they will walk in 7 times the anointing of the book of Acts. And like these places of refuge, another Holocaust is coming that's going to make the Holocaust in Germany seem like a picnic. So when the holy people in Israel are scattered, this war is going to bring a scattering, whether at the initial part of the 1260 days or when the 2 witnesses come on the scene 3.5 years later. There's going to be a scattering when the eyes of the Jewish people that are still in Israel, when they recognize the false prophet, this man of sin, for who he is, when they turn to the Lord, that we're going to, we have the responsibility to build safe places for our Jewish brothers and sisters that are going to come in, and also to preserve a remnant bride that's going to come out of the church. The bride of Christ is made up of 2 eyes, one being the church and one being the remnant that's going to come out of the Jewish people. And there will be places of refuge made across America as we go into hard times. Laws will be passed, food will be rationed. We will see America invaded by Russia and Chinese troops. All this is coming on the land. We'll see the United States divided in half because of what's taking place now in Israel. Times are going to be tough. God's people are going to have a hard time living in the cities. Especially when the Muslims rise up and start declaring a jihad. You church people, you better wake up. But if you're hearing this, if you're just a new believer or you're an old believer in the faith, you better shake yourself. And we all need to get on our knees and pray that we be counted worthy to escape these times coming on the land. It's not being raptured out of a time of trouble. We're going to be here. So you better, we all better set our feet on some high ground, to rise up in our faith, to know who God is making us into, that we might be part of this 2 witness company that's God's going to bring forth in America, that's going to go forth in great power and great authority to bring in this last harvest. And just want you to think about it. But I know the writing's on the wall, and we're about to see what Daniel saw. We're about to see that come to pass. And, along with other ancient prophecies foretelling of the times that we're in. And the Lord has trained me for these past 40 years to design places of refuge. I know that there's a time coming. This is going to be my job description across America and across the world, is to build places of refuge, so that God will have a people that will be preserved until the time of his coming. Many will die. There's going to be over 1 billion martyrs, but yet there's going to be still a remnant that's going to be here when the Lord comes back and sets his feet on the Mount of Olives, where the Mount of Olives is cleaved and cleaved in 2, and where he tosses the man of sin and the Antichrist, the false prophet and all that, and Satan into the lake of fire to bring in this millennial reign. Okay, I'm going to leave it here. This makes up the second part of this video set. This is Joshua Taylor coming to you from here in Nanaimo, British Columbia, Canada.